Hello again, fourth grade. It's time for the weekly reading of Lassie Come Home with Mrs. Highsong. Last week, we read about how Lassie crossed another river and about how she almost died, but survived because of the help with some wonderful people named Dan and Dally. And today, Wednesday, April 29th, we're going to read chapter 18 about the rest of her time with Dan and Dally and about the noble gift they give her. Lassie lay on the rug. Strength had returned to her in the 3 weeks she had been in her new home. Her senses were back to normal, and her muscles were almost as strong as ever. Other things had come back to her, too. When she had been weak and ill, these had been like forgotten things. But now they grew each day with the return of her health, insistent and demanding. The one driving force of her life was wakened, and it was leaving her no peace. It always grew worse in the afternoons. As the clock moved round toward 4, it became maddening. It was the time sense. It was time to go for the boy. Lassie rose and went to the door. She whined and lifted her head. "Ah, now, girl," it was the old woman. "You've been out for a nice walk with me on the string. You don't need to go out again, so come back here and rest yourself." But Lassie did not obey. She poked with her muzzle at the door. She walked to the window and stood on her hind legs. She dropped to all fours and went back to the door. Then, like an animal in a cage, she began pacing back and forth. She kept it up endlessly, walking to the door and turning, walking to the window and turning. She kept it up, her feet patting on the stone floor of the cottage. The click of her paw nails went as rhythmically as the click of the old woman's knitting needles. An hour later, Lassie ended her patrol. Slowly she went to the hearthrug. The time was past. She lay down and regarded the fire with unblinking eyes. Animals are creatures of habit, but new habits can be formed. There was a real chance that Lassie would forget and become contented in her new home. The couple treated her with all the love of their simple life, and she obeyed them and came to them when they called and allowed them to stroke and fondle her. But she did it with the forbearance of a dog that has only one master, and he is absent. For Lassie did not forget. Instead, with her returning health, she remembered more and more, and her daily patrollings in the late afternoon became longer and more agitated. Nor did the old couple fail to notice it. The old woman who so treasured this new thing of affection that had come into her life was aware of every least move that Lassie made. Such a steady occurrence as Lassie's afternoon pacing between the window and the door could not be disregarded. The woman hoped and almost dreamed that the dog would forget the outside world and be content in their small, snug, humble world of the cottage and the chickens and the goose. But finally she realized that it was no use, for Lassie began to refuse her food. Then the old woman knew. She sat long one evening, and at last, out of the silence, she spoke. "Dan, what is it now? She's not happy here." "Happy? Who isn't? What are you talking about?" "You know what I'm talking about. Herself. She's not happy. She's fretting." "Oh, now nonsense. You think more of that dog. Every time herself winks an eyebrow, you're thinking she's got the measles or the plague or I don't know what." The woman turned her eyes on herself as they had christened Lassie. She shook her head. "No, I didn't tell you, but the last 3 days, Dan, she's not eating." The man lifted his glasses to his forehead and studied the dog. Then his regard came to his aged wife. Now, Dally, it's all right. You've been feeding her so much, I don't wonder she'd turn her nose up at a dinner fit for a king, that's all." "No, it's not nonsense, Dan, and well, you know it. For why do you always keep her so tight on a string when you take her out last thing at night?" "Well, that's just in case, till she gets used to this as her home. If I let her free, she might get lost, and not knowing this countryside well, wouldn't find her way back, and you know that's a tale, Dan, as well as I do. You know that if she was free, she'd be away, and leaving us alone here, and never coming back." The man did not answer. The woman went on. "She's not happy, Dan. You don't see her as I do, every afternoon, window to door, door to window, until I think she'll wear a path deep in the flagging." "Oh, now that's just a dog's way of asking to go for a walk." "It is not, Dan, for I've tried it. I take her on the string, and not that she doesn't follow Bonnie and mind me, but she does it, Dan. You know what I think?" "What?" "Well, like she's just doing it because she's sorry for us. We've been kind to her, and she wouldn't want to hurt our feelings, so she just puts up with us, like she's too polite to run unless we tell her to go. Ah, now, no dog can be full of things like that, like human things. Nay, my herself is, Dan. You don't know that dog, Dan. Well? The old woman's voice dropped. You see, I know about this dog. I know something. What? Dan, she's going somewhere. She's on her way. Ah, now, woman, and what fancies are you building up in your mind? I don't care, Dan. I know. Me and herself, we both know. She was on her way, Dan, and she got tired on the way, and she's just stopped here like it was a hospital or a wayside inn in a story. And now she's better. She wants to be on her way, but she's so polite and understanding she doesn't want to hurt us. But in her heart, she's far being away. She's not happy here. The old man did not answer. He tapped out his clay pipe in the palm of his hand and looked steadily at the dog. Finally, he spoke. Aye, he said. All right, Dally. All right. There are people whose hearts are so full of ugly fear that when they see a thirsty animal pass with a fleck of saliva on its parched jowl, they must run in terror, shouting, Mad dog! There are others to whom every passing creature is an enemy, to be harried on its way with a flung stone. But, and for this the canine world must be thankful, there are others with affection and deep understanding in their lives who bring dignity and honor to the relationship between man and dog. Such was the old couple, who on the next afternoon sat watching the dog. When the time neared 4 o'clock and Lassie rose, their eyes followed her. And when Lassie whined at the door and then paced to the window, they both sighed. Well, the old man said, that was all. They both got up. The woman opened the door. Side by side, the old man and his wife followed Lassie out to the road. Then, for a moment, the dog stood as if unable to realize that at last her great urge could be fulfilled. She looked back at the woman whose hands had patted and fondled her and fed her. For a second, the old woman wished to call the dog back to her and try again to wean its mind from old memories. But she was too honest. She lifted her head and her aged voice came clearly. It's all right then, dog. If you must go, away with ye. In that sentence, Lassie caught the word go. It was what she wanted. She turned, looked back once as in a glance of farewell, and then started, not up the road to the east, nor down it to the west, but straight across the field. She was going south again. She went at a trot, the same trot that had carried her bravely through the highlands of Scotland. Not a fast one, nor a slow one, but a steady pace that ate at miles, that could be kept up for hour after hour. So she went across the field, over a wall, and down the slope. Back on the road, the old woman stood, her chin set firm, and she waved her hand and said, Goodbye, herself. Goodbye, and good luck to ye. Long after the dog was out of sight, she stood there, until her husband put his arm around her. It's getting rare chilly now, Dally, he said. We'd better go in. They went into the cottage, and the routine of life went on. The woman prepared the simple evening meal. She lit the lamp. They sat at the table. But neither of them ate. Then the man looked up and said sympathetically, I'll put the lamp in the window, Dally, for tonight. Like, for chance she just gone for a long run, and then if she wants to find her way back. He knew the dog was never coming back, but he had thought it might make his wife feel better if he told her this. However, he stopped speaking, for as he looked up, he saw his wife's head bowed and tears were falling. Quickly he rose. Now, Dally, he said. Now. He put his arms about her and patted her consolingly. Now don't fret yourself, Dally. Look, I'll tell you what. I've a couple of shillings put away, and I'll take down a few eggs and sell 'em, and then I'll go to the market. And I know a place where they sell dogs. And I'll get ye another, A fine little dog that'll stay here with ye and not want to run away. Herself was too big. She was, and them big ones eat too much anyhow, and a nice little one. The old woman looked up. She wanted to cry out the words that always come from a dog lover after their animal is gone. I don't ever want another dog. But because of her regard for her husband, she never spoke the words. It cost a lot to feed, Dan. Of course it did. And a little dog, or perhaps a cat, why, it cost almost nothing. That's it, a cat, Dan. If you'd get me just a nice cat. One that'd stay curled up on the hearth and stay by ye. That's it. I'll get ye a fine cat. The finest cat anybody could ever want. How's that? The old woman looked up. "Ah, Daniel, you're kind to me." Then she dashed her tears away and smiled. Sure. We're getting all in a stew, and here's tea getting all cold," he said. "Oh, I couldn't eat, Dan." "Well, then, have a nice cup of tea." "Aye, that's right," she said. "A good cup of tea'll cheer us both up." "It will indeed, and Saturday we'll have you the bonniest little cat you ever did see. Won't that be fine?" The woman smiled bravely. "Aye, it'll be fine," she said.